Shalom, shalom, big. How y'all doing this day, man? Hope y'all had a good Saturday, man. I'm back. You see, man, it's be y'all brothers. I come. I got another presentation for y'all, man. It's gonna be kind of good, man. It's along the same line, but it's a little bit more gravitating toward what's going on. This conflict in the Middle East, and the restoration of the true Israelites. Because see what we have to know is that as all this stuff is going on, you got the spirit of the Most High working with His people because they are still scattered, throughout the four corners of the earth. So, we got quite a few things going on simultaneously, but it's the will of the Father, and that's the way it has to be. That's the way it's gonna be, and can't nobody change that. So, without further ado, we're going to give all praise, honor, and glory to the Father. And we do so in the name of the beloved Son, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus, whose proper name is Yeshuah. And we're going to dedicate this lesson, man, to all those who don't know but want to know and have a burning spirit, to want to repent and turn to the Father, man. We're going to dedicate this lesson here to y'all, man. So before we go any further, please hit that like and share button, man. If you're new, please subscribe, man. It don't cost you nothing. It's free of charge. Push the button, man. We're going to go further. Go ahead, man. Hit the button so we move forward. It's just a like button, the subscribe button. It's not going to harm you. It's not going to harm you. Go hit it so we can go further, man. We're waiting on you. You want to hit the like button. That's okay. I'm glad you tuned in anyway, man. So, without further ado, let's get with it, man. As I said, we're going to have this presentation here, dealing with the ongoing conflict in the so-called Middle East, which that's Northeast Africa. But how all these things that are happening now, are supposed to happen, written. And all this is really the precursor for the Most High's judgment on the nation, regarding how they treated His people. So, true Israelite. Let's get with it, man. So we're gonna add this slide to the stage. And we're gonna remove my ugly face, man. We're gonna get right on with it. All right. Shut the screen up. There we go. Now, as y'all can see, the cup of iniquity, judgment, and the return of Yeshuah in the Middle East. This presentation explores the prophetic judgment of the nations, the specific role often attributed to America in the latter days, and how current events in the Middle East serve as a spiritual compass to the return of Yeshuah. All right, let's move to the next slide. The mandate for judgment, why the nations must fall. The Bible teaches that God's judgment is not arbitrary. It is the inevitable consequence of a nation's cup of iniquity coming full. Historically, God's judgment judged empires like Babylon and Rome, not just for personal sins, but for their treatment of His people, Israel. That's right. All these, these nations, had the children of Israel in captivity, under subjugation, persecution, slavery, and all these things. Yes, and they don't have to pay for all that. Move on. The biblical foundation we have here is Matthew 25, verses 31 through 46, which describes the judgment of the nations, where Yeshua separates the sheep from the goats based on how they treated His brethren, right? And as you see, got some little brackets for y'all. The separation of course, it's not going to be literal sheep and literal goats. It's going to be evil people and wicked, righteous people. We know that righteous branch, that righteous olive branch are the Most High's chosen. And these righteous sheep or people you know, just because they're Israelites, you know, don't mean that they're gonna be, you know, put over there with the rest of the sheep. A lot of Israelites gonna be judged and condemned as well. In other words, separated and thrown right in with the goats, right? So let's start to give y'all a little graphic right there. Okay. Let's move on. Gentile dilemma. Because you know, it's a dilemma. This is why you're seeing, if y'all have noticed, a lot of Gentiles, particularly here, a lot of white people are making videos and basically admitting, so-called black people. I say so-called because we're not black, right? But they admit that we was right in what we've been trying to tell them for decades, about this government, about this nation, about their fellow white, counterparts, if you will. But anyway, here's the dilemma. Throughout history, Gentile nations have held dominion over the earth during the times of the Gentiles. You find Yeshuah speaking about that in Luke 21 and 24. So, however, this dominion is finite. Ancient scholars, including Josephus and modern ones like Walter Kaiser, emphasize that this period ends when the Messiah returns to establish his kingdom from Jerusalem. Right? The America and the prophetic parallels, and what's talking about here is how when you look at all the empires in ancient times, they left a pattern as to how they rose and how they fell. And that blueprint, that pattern, it's been the same with every other empire that has, risen after, that very first world empire, which we know was Babylon, right? Then Egypt, and so on and so forth. They all fell the same way. And we seeing this same parallel with the United States of America and the other Western European countries. Check this out. So while America is not named in the Bible, many scholars find its image in the merchants of Tarshish and all its villages. Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 13, representing the colonies and powers that arose from Western Europe, right? The fall of a great nation. Just as ancient Israel fell when it relied on its own wealth and power instead of God, many modern commentators see America's spiritual decline, turning away from its foundation as a precursor to judgment. Of course, I remember articulating in a previous video. I'm not for sure exactly which one it was, but they had God bless America and so on and so forth. This is a Christian nation. This is a God-given nation, and so on and so forth. And as I recall explaining, is that of course, the giving into the hands of the Gentile, in other words, the Most High giving his people and his inheritance in the hands of the Gentile. Of course, that's going to be a blessing for those Gentiles. But when you look at all these empires that stood, that been erected and failed, in their inception, they was built on the backs of the Israelites, human souls, specifically the Israelites, right? So that was those nations' blessings. So I can see from that perspective why they said the Most High is going to destroy this nation. This nation is not going to be blessed, anymore than what it has already been. This nation is declining and heading for a sudden destruction, right? It goes on in the next slide. No intervention. In Ezekiel chapter 38 prophecy, the merchants of Tarshish, possibly including the U.S., I'm going to tell you why, are notable for their lack of action, merely asking if the invaders have come to take its part, suggesting a decline in their ability or will to protect Israel. Tarshish, these are Tarshish is in the eyes of the Gentile, right? The Gentile nation. And being that America is really a Gentile nation because it's not an Israelite nation, ancient or otherwise, right? It will fall under Gentile nation. And of course, we know that the ships of Tarshish, in other words, the powers of be that Tarshish was going to, and their kings and stuff of that nature was going to build up the walls and give all their riches and stuff to the true Israelites, upon their gathering and restoration back into their land, right? So this is why I say that this possibly includes the U.S., but this other scripture that let you know by identifying the characteristics of America that it's talking about. The Most High willing, we'll see that here. Let's move forward, right? Okay, we got a little more graphic here. And what this graphic here is, the gathering, the supernatural gathering of the remnant from the four corners of the earth, prophetic time clock, that of course they go to earth, and all the nations that's involved in the judgment, in the valley of the siege. Of course, it's going to be a plethora of them. It's just some of the main few right here. Now, I just want to give y'all, kind of little imagery, man. Kind of give you a general idea. Of course, I'm not saying this how it's going to happen, but, to let you know the imagery sometimes can, teach a lot as well. And that's right, because look what they did with the iconoclasts, how they whitewashed all the images. And look what those images have done. Look at the outcome and the result of those images. So images are powerful. Anyway, Middle East war, the prophetic clock. The ongoing conflict in the Middle East is seen by many as more than just geopolitical chaos. It is viewed as prophecy in motion, which it is. Ezekiel 38 and 39 line. Modern conflicts involve nations such as Persia, which is modern day Iran, that are explicitly named as allies of Magog. Say in the final assault against a regathered Israel, not the 1948, but the true scene. Excuse me, I had to take a drink of the tea, y'all. All right, foreshadowing. The current escalations are described as a foreshadowing of the final battle of Armageddon. As I was saying also in the previous lesson, where I was really echoing Yeshuah, where he's speaking about the wars and rumors of wars, in Matthew, I think the 25th or the 24th chapter. If I'm not mistaken, it's the 25th chapter. But anyway, this is what this foreshadowing is. It's the foreshadowing of the final and last and final war where all the nations will be gathered, by the Most High for their judgment. And, the things that's going on now is almost like a trap for these nations. Everybody over there really fighting over that land and all this stuff here that belongs to neither one of them. And ongoing global economic situation is what's going to cause other nations to come over there in that area. And really it's just the Most High's way of getting them over there so we can judge or plead with them, as it said in Scripture. But let's read. It says, current escalations are described as a foreshadowing of the final battle of Armageddon, which occurs when the nations are on the verge of destroying true Israel, triggering the personal intervention and return of the Messiah. All right, the return of Yeshuah and the restoration. The final act of history is not the destruction of the world, but its restoration under the reign of Yeshuah. In his arrival, Yeshuah will physically return to the Mount Olives. We find in Zechariah chapter 14, verse 4, and Matthew chapter 24, verse 30, right? And the results, he would judge the nation, ending Gentile rule and establishing a kingdom of peace where nation will not lift up sword against nation. And we find this in Isaiah chapter 2, verse 4, right? And so we're moving on, right? We are encouraged not to live in anxiety, but to keep watch, as stated in Matthew chapter 24, verse 13. The alignment of the Middle East, the spiritual state of the great Gentile power, and the return of the true Israelites to the land, all point to one reality. The time of the Gentiles are nearing their end, and the king is coming, right? And this, like I said, this is what all this is leading up to, one big climax, one big event that's going to decide all, right? Okay, in Revelation 18, Zechariah 14, Deuteronomy 28, the specific prophecies of the book of Revelation comparing the coming fall of the West, ancient Babylon. That's that pattern that I was explaining to you earlier, those parallels, right? And not only that, the characteristics that let the reader or the practitioner know what nation is being talked about in this day and time. Because keep in mind, a lot of the names of nations were changed. Say things like Persia. A lot of people don't know that Iran was Persia. A lot of people don't know that. They read the word Persia in the Bible. They think that's some ancient, remote, long in the distant past land that don't exist no more. Yeah. Everything that was back then still exists right today. Lest the Most High say that it's not existing. Let's move on. Right? Says the specific prophecies of the book of Revelation comparing the coming fall of the West to ancient Babylon and identifying the true actors in this final drama according to the scriptures of Yahweh. Next slide. The fall of modern Babylon and the Gentile powers. In Revelation 18, we see the total collapse of a global superpower, referred to as Babylon the Great. This nation is described as the hub of world commerce, military might, and spiritual deception. Let me read that again. This nation is described as the hub, or the centerpiece, the focal point of world commerce, military might, and spiritual deception. It's America all day long, right? Watch this. Check out the historical parallel. Just as the original Babylon failed for enslaving and mistreating the true Israelites, modern Gentile nations led by the daughter of Babylon, America, face a similar fate. Yahuwah warns his people in Revelation 18:4 to come out of her, my people, so that you will not share in her sin. But a lot of his people are going to share in her sins, right? And like the judgment of the merchants, all these, just follow with me, y'all. Just follow. But we're gonna lead up to a point where you're like, okay, all right, I see it's said now. All right, it said, much like the ancient Roman Empire, the modern West has built its wealth on the souls of men and global exploitation. Scholars of the true Israelite perspective point to the Atlantic slave trade and the ongoing dispersion of the real Hebrew peoples as the primary reason for this coming judgment, which is, right? Okay, here we go. We're gonna start biting on some meat now, y'all. Watch this. Deception in the land, little handballs. The scriptures speak of a period of great confusion regarding the identity of the people in the Holy Land. In Revelation chapter 2, verse 9 and chapter 3, verse 9, these verses mention those who say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. This is what Yeshuah say, right? Say, from a strict Israelite style of view, the little head boys currently occupying the land are seen as converts, which they are. That's the truth. Those are facts. You go look that up. They even admit it, right? Which are Khazars / Edomites. Like the one that's occupying now, those are the descendants of Amalek, which is the grandson of Esau. Everything that descends from Esau is Idumea or Edom or Edomite. Idumea will be the Greek term for the word Edom or Edomite. Right? Who have taken the name but not the lineage. That's right. They have taken our name, but they cannot take the bloodline. See, it's one of the reasons why they made it illegal over there for you to do a DNA test. I don't know if y'all seen this boy Tucker Carlson interview one of the so-called prominent people from over there. And he was talking to him about the DNA thing. And this man just became dumbfounded or pretended to be dumbfounded, like he didn't know what Tucker Carlson was talking about. But they had DNA tests illegal. And like Tucker Carlson was saying, shouldn't you want this? I mean, that way everybody can tell who is who. You know what I'm saying? And rightfully so. So like this is something they will want. So a person can't say, hey, I'm this, I'm that, and just slide through the cracks like they have done with the word. But yeah, so they're not the truth. They can't steal the lineage. They do everything in their power within their funds, the money that they have stolen throughout the world to keep that hid. Can't out the bag now. Can't hide it no more. True people are waking up. Let's move on. The occupation, Gentile occupation. We're talking about the so-called holy. Well, I don't say so-called, but anything that the Most High says is holy. But the land that's being occupied now by these people, they have made it totally unholy. Right? Yeshuah stated in Luke chapter 21, verse 24, that Jerusalem will be trodden down. In other words, it will be occupied by the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. In other words, today time is up, and you don't see when their time is up. This suggests that the current political state in the Middle East, run by the Little Hat Boys, is still part of the Gentile world system, which it is, right? Because these so-called Jews, these Jewish people, these people, they can pretty much control the world as well. These so-called Rothschild people and all these different big families like that, these people are Zionist Jews. They call themselves Jews. And these people are the ones who control your monetary system throughout the world through these world banking systems and what they call the International Monetary Fund and all this stuff here, man. So, they control all the wealth. That's why in Revelation chapter 2, verse 9, what Yeshuah is saying, I know you trial and tribulation, but and your poverty, but thou art rich. Where the true children of Israel are going to be in poverty, man. These people control pretty much the wealth of the world, which show that they're not who they say they are. Let's read on. Let's say this suggests that the current political state in the Middle East, run by the Little Hat Boys, is still part of the Gentile world system, not the true Messianic kingdom of Yeshuah. Let's move on. The Middle East war, gathering for slaughter. In other words, we finna get into this trap I explained earlier. I say the ongoing wars in the Middle East are the fulfillment of Joel 3 and Zechariah 14. The trap, right? Yeshuah is using the current geopolitical tensions to draw all Gentile nations into a valley of decision, right? The valley of Jehoshaphat. Excuse me, y'all. Salah. The valley of Jehoshaphat. The conflict involving the Little Hat Boys and the surrounding Arab nations is the catalyst that forces the world's military power into that region. That's right. And see, it's like, people gonna have sympathy for Iran, they gonna come and help, and then people gonna have sympathy for the Little Hat Boys, they gonna come help, and the Most High gonna have all right way he want them in the valley of decision, where he gonna plead. That word plead means to judge, right? Matter of fact, let's go look at that. We'll get it. Let's move on. All right. Well, I'm gonna get it. Got some more graphics for y'all, man. I hope y'all like the little graphics, man. Just I said to kind of give you a visual what this thing gonna be. That's right. Direct relations, right? As America and the West pour resources into these wars, which they do, we know America sent the Little Hat Boys billions of dollars, and they wasn't even in the chambers and stuff over here, man. That was over there in Germany. So what America doing paying their time? Yep, that's right. The only way, it's just like a man and a woman. You meet a woman, man, go and spend all your money on a man unless you know for sure she yours. Same principle. Same principle, man. They in the bed together. So as America and the West pour resources into these wars, they are depleting their own strength, which they are. Look at your gas price and the prices of everything else in this so-called land of the free, land of plenty. Yeah, right. Leading to the economic and social fall described in Revelation. This chaos is the labor pain preceding the birth of the new kingdom. Moving right along. Return of Yeshuah, the true Jew. The climax occurs when the true Israelites, descendants of those scattered to the four corners of the earth in ships, as articulated and stated in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 68, are supernaturally regathered. Right? In other words, this supernatural regathering is going to appear to be supernatural because it's like kind of let me give y'all an example. I'm gonna use something that's gonna kind of like give y'all an example of what I'm talking about. All right. Even though I don't believe in none of that election stuff, I ain't gonna vote for nothing but I'm gonna vote for Yeshua. But anyway, if y'all know it's how so-called black people trying to tell everybody, especially, these other so-called marginalized communities, to not vote for Trump. You know what I'm saying? He's telling you what he's going to do, right? Okay, and everybody went out and voted for Trump and got him up in there, right? So black people are like, well, okay, since they going to do that, man, we not finna go no protest. We not finna do none of that, et cetera, et cetera. And this what's been happening with so-called black people collectively, right? So it's gonna kind of be something like that. It's not. It's gonna appear to be just spur of the moment or triggered from a certain situation that may occur that's gonna make everybody, return, or return to the Lord, right? That's just my understanding. That's not facts. That's not, just my understanding, my opinion of it all. The scriptures say how it's going to happen. That's what you should lean on. You don't have to understand it. Pray that the Father give you that, right? Okay, Yeshua does not return to join a political party or defend a secular state. That's right. See, all this stuff here, on the surface, on the table, it's geopolitical. It's economical and so on and so forth, right? But that ain't what it really and truly is, coming from a spiritual perspective. Coming from a spiritual perspective, man, this is about rulership. You know what I'm saying? A change of rulership. Wickedness being purged from the earth. You know what I'm saying? So righteousness can prevail. So let's move on. The restoration. Upon his return, Yeshua will sit on the throne of David. The little hat boys rule will end, and the true Israelites, the remnant of the scattered seed, will be restored to their right position as the priests and rulers of earth under Yahuwah. That's the typo. I should have said Yeshua. Salam. But anyway, this is what I mean about, when I was saying earlier, about the restoration, when the fulfillment of the Gentile is over. It ends when Yeshua returns and put everything in place. That's when their rulership ends. That's when they dominion, the time of the Gentiles fulfilled. Right? Let's move on. The falling of America is the rising of the true Israelites. Because this is the world, this is the last day, and America is standing world power in these last days, even though she's slowly surely toppling over, right? But that's the world power, right? So say the fall of America is the rising of the true Israelites. As the world watches the Middle East, we must see through deception. The wars are not just about land, they are about the final removal of Gentile authority to make way for the line of the tribe of Judah, which is Yeshuah. And that's what this is, that's what all this boils down to, man. You know, all that stuff has to happen in order to clear all that trash out, you know what I'm saying? So true king can come and true rulership of righteousness and peace and safety can be restored to the earth again. That's what this is all about. Let's move along. The final news, the economic march, global alliances, and the judgment of the West. We're coming from Revelation 13, Ezekiel 38, and Habakkuk, chapter 2. Let's examine further the tightening of the economic and geopolitical news surrounding the final days, right? The rising role of global alliances like BRICS and NATO, and the spiritual march that signaled the end of Gentile rule by Yeshuah, right? So the mark in Revelation chapter 13, verse 17 is described as a system where no one may buy or sell without the authority of the beast. And, you know, you kind of seeing this stuff in fragments. I mean, they've been piecing this thing together, man, for a long time now. You know, you can go and read some old books, man. Not really old, but like they got this one. He wrote two of them. One book is called The New World Order by Ralph Epperson. And you got another one called The Unseen Hand. You know, the New World Order, he kind of breaking a lot of this stuff down, as well as in the Unseen Hand. Because what the Unseen Hand is dealing with is showing you the people behind it. You know what I'm saying? The deception and stuff like that the world is up under. That's why it's called the Unseen Hand. But let's move on. Right? They say many scholars of the true Israelites see the current push for central bank digital currency, you know, your Bitcoins and all this stuff here, right? Radio frequency identification chips, which is RFID, and the elimination of cash. This is something they slowly but surely pretty much moving toward, and it's probably going to be that way, especially if this American dollar totally collapses and this BRICS currency, you know, continue to rise, like, you know, this BRICS thing continue to rise. We may see a cashless society here in America. But anyway, let's move on. Let's say the elimination of cash as the infrastructure for this mark. It is a system of total control designed to lock out anyone who does not bow to the Gentile world order. Right? And of course, we know that's what it is, and we see this today, you know, because, you know, certain places, man, you know, you can't even go, you know what I'm saying, without, you know, certain credentials and stuff like this, man, you know, and if you don't have those certain credentials, you're not accessing anything, you know, and they showing you these things in these movies and these TV shows. That way, when they do just drop it, you know, it ain't gonna be a shock of consciousness, man. You know, it's gonna be already normal to you. That's part of the deception, right? Mark of allegiance. Beyond a physical mark, this is a spiritual brand where one's ability to survive is tied to their allegiance to a system that opposes the laws of Yeshuah. Case in point, they tell you Easter, Yeshuah say Passover. They tell you seventh day of the week is the Sabbath. They tell you the first day. It's total opposition. Yeshuah tell you don't eat the shrimp, don't eat the shellfish, the crab, the shrimp, the lobster, you know, fish without the fins and the scale. You know, he tell you not to eat those things, right? The swine and all that. But the devil, opposition, tells you can eat it and will give you a convincing lie and make you believe that you can eat it and it's okay to eat. And you still gonna be loved by the Most High. That's the deception of it all. Let's move on, people. BRICS, the kings of the East, and the fall of the dollar. Rise of BRICS, which stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and now Iran, and others is a direct geopolitical blow to the dollar of Babylon, America. And we're going back to what I was just mentioning about this, de-dollarization, right? Which we know is part of the joke. They say the U.S. dollar has been the wine that made all nations drunk. Revelation chapter 17, verse 2. And BRICS nations move to trade in their own currencies, right? And de-dollarize. They are effectively draining the lifeblood of the American empire. And what is the lifeblood of a nation? The economy, right? Okay, but to put it on a global scale, at one point, the American dollar, it covers 65% of the Earth population. That means over half the American dollar can be spent in over half of anywhere in Earth that that accept American. This was the global currency. This was the currency that everybody used to buy their raw material and resources and stuff like that, like they oil and all this stuff here. So if the BRICS currency becomes, the dominant or that wine, so to speak, that everybody's using to trade in, oil and other natural resources, stuff like that, what happens to the American dollar, which was once that driving force? It falls, it declines, it becomes ineffective. It's no good, it's useless, right? So now, in order for you to be able to go to the grocery store and get whatever you're gonna get to eat and to survive, you gotta have a certain currency. You're gonna have to have a certain currency. And if this BRICS currency thing becomes, the global force, then you're gonna have to obtain some BRICS currency. And I remember doing a couple of videos a few years ago on this when it first, became, public. When it first became public, when it kind of came up, when other nations had joined. It was about 3 years ago. I did a couple of videos on it, and I was saying the same thing then. If this currency becomes, the world currency, then a lot of people are going to be stuck out, really, because I think it takes a certain amount of American dollars or regular dollars or whatever currency you use to make one BRIC dollar or vice versa. I have to go back and check my notes on it to give y'all an accurate, assessment on it. But anyway, the de-dollarization is judgment. The U.S. dollar has been the wine that made all nations drunk. Revelation chapter 17, 2. As BRICS nations move to trade in their own currencies, de-dollarize, they are effectively draining the lifeblood of the American empire. Prophetic alignment. Daniel chapter 11, verse 44 speaks of news from the east and the north that troubles the final world order. The alliances between Russia, which is the north, and China and Iran, which is the east, creates a counterweight to Western dominance, fulfilling the prophecy of nations being gathered for the final conflict. Yep, that's what you're seeing. NATO and the beast with 10 horns. While BRICS rises in the east, NATO represents the military muscle of the Western Gentile powers, which is true. NATO, NATO is talking about strong in military might and technology and stuff like that. But this was the West's go-to guy to they bullet pretty much if you would have but when it comes to popularity and momentum and and say things coming from an economic point of view, if BRICS currency get a stronghold and becomes the world currency that every nation is trading with, then that's gonna kind of like not necessarily deplete or make NATO weak militarily, but that'll make a lot of their stuff obsolete and ineffective towards Greece, because all other nations then, even probably some of the people who were part of NATO, because a lot of them gonna turn. They're gonna turn on each other. Let's get into this here. Watch this. Right. So while Greece rises in the east, NATO represents the military muscle of the Western Gentile powers, often identified with the 10 horns of the Roman revived beast system, which is right. The guardian of the order. This is what I'm talking about right here. Check it out. NATO served to protect the interests of the little hat boys and the Western financial system. So all these people in the bed together, right? However, as Yahweh brings judgment, these allies will eventually turn on each other. Find that in Revelation chapter 17, verse 16 says, the horns will eventually hate the prostitute. Who was the prostitute, right? The corrupt religious economic system, and bring her to ruin. That's America. She got everybody drunk. And the overreach of that is this right here. Check it out. Say, by expanding to the Middle East and Eastern Europe, NATO is drawing the world closer to the valley of Jehoshaphat, where Yahuwah was set to judge all the surrounding nations. We can find that in Joel chapter 3, verse 12. And this goes back to what I was saying about how everybody feel like they're going to have an interest over there. They're going to bring their military forces and all that stuff over there, all their mighty men and all that stuff there. That's when the Most High fight on them. You know what I'm saying? No fighting. Yeah, that's when it all won't take place. Let's move on. The Middle East, the trigger for global collapse. Right? Check it out. Say the war involving the little hat boys in the Middle East is the tripwire for both NATO and BRICS, right? For the nations, that trap, Most High smooth, man. Watch this. So Yahuwah is using this tiny piece of land to make Jerusalem a cup that sends all the surrounding people staggered. Zechariah chapter 12, verse 2, right? NATO is forced to defend, right? They go to God. They go to God, right? NATO is forced to defend the land, while BRICS nations like Iran and Russia are drawn in to oppose them. See how the Most this stuff is, but it's right there. It's right there for you to see, man. It's plain upon table, but you got to keep those commandments so that flesh can be subdued and that spirit wake up and you're able to see those type of things. Let's move on. The final item. This conflict will lead to the day of the Lord, when the Gentile powers have exalted themselves and the system of the little hat boys is proven to be deception. Yeshua will appear. He will not come to save a digital economy or a political alliance, but to redeem the true Israelites and establish a kingdom based on the Torah and the Spirit. We see the marks appeared in our banking apps, and the wars appeared on our border. America is falling because its time is up. The true Israelites must not put their hopes in BRICS or NATO. No, none of this system stuff, man. We Bitcoins and all and none of this stuff, man. We not, if you're gonna do anything, man, get you a tract of land, grow you some food, you know what I'm saying, stuff like that, man. Get some protection, and keep them commandments, wait on the Lord, man, and pray and fast, and, do those things because the system is over. You do no good to take part in it. No investments in and none. Like I said, if you're gonna do anything, do it to establish you something where when it all take place, you're still good. All right, here we go. I say the true Israelites does not put their hope in BRICS or NATO, but both are Gentile constructs. They are. And the Gentile rule is over, so all this stuff gonna fall. So why you gonna run it in? Right? Say our hope is in the return of Yeshua, who will break the gates of brass and cut the bars of iron asunder. Our praise to the Father. Right? Final countdown. Daniel 70 weeks and the restoration of the remnant. I want y'all to kind of play close attention here, man. It's gonna help you understand. Kind of like where we at. It's not accurate because I'm no prophet, man. But check this out, man. Watch this. So this part of this presentation breaks down the 70 weeks of Daniel, with Daniel chapter 9, verse 24 to 27. A prophecy that provides the precise countdown to the first appearance of Yeshuah, the destruction of Jerusalem, and the final gathering of the true Israelites from their global captivity. Right? Understand the math of Yahuwah. The 70 weeks are not literal 7-day weeks, but weeks of years totaling 490 years, like the sabbatical cycles, right? This timeline is rooted in the law of Yahuwah, where the land must rest every 7 years, because the true Israelites failed to keep these Sabbaths. They were exiled to Babylon for 70 years, right? We don't. Pay attention, just follow along with me. The greater punishment. All right, Gabriel explained to Daniel that a further period of 70 times 7, in other words, 490 years, was decreed to finish the transgression and bring in everlasting righteousness, right? The division of those years, check it out. The 490 years are split into 3 parts, 7 weeks, which are 49-year periods, 62 weeks, which come out to be 434 years, and the final 1 week, which is 7 years. Here we go. Watch this. So the prophecy states that the decree to rebuild Jerusalem until the Messiah, that will be 69 weeks, remember, 483 years. Okay, his first coming. The historical records and the scholar Harold Holner showed that from the decree of Artaxerxes, which was circa 444 to 457 BC, the timeline leads exactly to the ministry of Yeshuah, right? The sacrifice, check this out. We're talking about his crucifixion, check it out. So after the 62nd week, the Messiah was to be cut off, remember, was crucified. As many Israelite scholars know, this sacrifice was to redeem the true Israelites and seal the covenant, causing the need for animal sacrifices to cease, right? That's what this was all about. That's why you ain't got to bring the turtle dove no more, you see. Yeshua's blood is for, right? Let's move on. Okay, the prophetic gap. We're still talking about the 7. Check this out. Say between the 69th and the 70th week, there is an intermediate and indeterminate period, often called the church age. Check this out, or the parentheses. Right, the destruction of AD 70, shortly after the Messiah was cut off, was crucified. The people of the prince who was to come, which was the Romans, destroyed the city and the sanctuary, the temple, right? Say this begun the long exile of the true Israelites into all nations by ship. Let's go check these scriptures here out. Let's go check. Now I'm gonna keep pushing in that moment. And you want to see these scriptures, go look them up. That's why I got it cited in here. So that's why I didn't put them on slides to be read. Check it. I got a couple, I think, to be read. And we can find this in these scriptures. Luke chapter 21, verse 24, and Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 68. Right? The occupation. Okay, so we talked about that earlier too, about who occupied the land while the true people were gone, right? So during this gap, the little hat boys and other Gentile powers have occupied the land, waiting for the time of the Gentiles to be fulfilled. Okay, now we're going to kind of get into this here a little more deep, right? The 7th week, final 7 years, this is what we need to pay attention to, right? The final week is yet to be fully realized. It is the period often referred to as Jacob's trouble, right? Say Daniel chapter 9, verse 27 is detailing the false peace of the final 7 years. All right, when whoever this person is gonna declare this false peace and all this stuff in, so on and so forth, and gonna trick everybody. Everybody gonna believe, yeah, it's it. But it's not it. Check it out. Which describes a covenant with many that is broken halfway, which is 3.5 years, 3.5 years, right? They say this period is characterized by temporary stability, followed by sudden destruction, as confirmed in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 3, where people claim peace and safety, but before calamity, right? That's what that verse is talking about. So as we see right here, this, it's going to be 3.5 years of, the stability, the safety, the peace, and all that this person gonna trick everybody into believing it is, and you're gonna be able to show a little something. You're gonna, like in street day, the complex, they got the mix roll. You know what I'm saying? A few $100 bill, couple 50 through 20, but the rest of the newspaper, but it's big around the softball, right? Let's move on. You gotta have something. You gotta have your stage props in order for it to work, right? In Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 7, said, "Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it." Talking about Jacob's trouble. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it, right? So, some of us ain't gonna have the full extent of this thing, right? That's kind of like another lesson. Let's move on. Right, Daniel 9, verse 12, KJV. "And he had confirmed his words, which he spake against us and against our judges that judged us, by bringing upon us a great evil. For under the whole heaven had not been done as had been done upon Jerusalem." So still talking about Jacob's trouble, right? So in other words, what's going to happen to the Israelites is going to be like something that never ever happened before, and it's never going to happen again, right? Check it out. Daniel chapter 12, verse 1, another precept for it, another scripture, a witness for it, right? It said, "At that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, everyone that shall be found written in the book." So those people who are going to be found written in the book ain't gonna suffer the full extent of this time. And what I'm saying, what the book say, it is right here before your eyes. Right? Let's move on. The false peace, as spoken about. All right, in this final 7-year block, a Gentile leader will confirm a covenant with the many, right? Stated in the script, say, including the little hat boys in the land, right? But remember, the deception is still on the earth. Say the Middle East trip. This covenant will be broken halfway through. In other words, 3.5 years, folks gonna shut it down, gonna renege. Watch this. Leading to an abomination of desolation, right? The current escalating war in the Middle East is the world preparing for this false peace treaty. Notice in the midst of this war, they still, and like it always be, but in the midst of this war, they one hour they got a peace treaty, 6 hours later, boom, somebody dropping a bomb on somebody. So all this stuff is written, man, to happen. It's happening. Let's move on. We're still here on the 7th final week, though, right? On 7 years. Say the final week begins with a treaty between the Antichrist and the little hat barber. This is what the world gonna think is the world still think, even though a lot is waking up to these people's deception, but still the supporting, main core supporting factor of these people here, is still deceived or in bed with them. No, they're not, but still going along with the farce, right? Let's say, which allows them to rebuild the temple. Revelation chapter 6, verse 2, right? In the middle of this period, 3.5 years, the leaders stopped the sacrifice, desecrating the temple, often called the abomination of desolation, right? Goes on, Revelation 6 and 2, check it out. "And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him with power," right? Authority was given unto him, and he went forth conquering to conquer. Now, in this particular verse, this conquering is not what you think it's talking about. This conquering is this deception of this false peace and stuff, right? This is why I got Yeshua's word right? He has a witness to show you that this is what this is talking about, right? Say, many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. So he's using the word conquering, but he's talking about how people are going to fall for this false peace, you know what I'm saying, this false safety that your Antichrist is going to get, going to sell to them, right? That's why I said, many shall come in my name, saying, I'm Christ, shall deceive many, right? Let's move on. But his return going to kill a lot of that, though. Watch this. It said, at the end of this final week, Yeshuah returned to destroy the Gentile systems, which is America and NATO and the rest of the pretenders, right? In the land, finally bringing the 490-year prophecy to its conclusion. Everlasting righteousness for the true Israelites, right? So the clock is ticking. We are in the final moments of the gap before the 70th week begins. The fall of America and the rising conflict in the Middle East are signs that the 490-year plan of Yeshuah is about to be completed. And that is so, people. That is so. So, you know, we got to understand, man, that we are really in those times, man. Let me remove this here. We got to understand that we are really in those times, man. And, you know, we must prepare ourselves, man. How do we prepare ourselves? We prepare ourselves, man, by repenting, you know what I'm saying, and turning to the laws of God. You know, stop believing in this false system, you know what I'm saying, because this system here is gonna give you it's gonna give you a false everything. False spirituality with the false church and this false doctrine and all that, man. You got to turn away from all that. Repent. You know, like I always tell y'all, you know, really a lot of our downfall come from these pagan holidays. Celebrating these pagan holidays, thinking that this stuff is of the Most High, and it's not. Paul tells the Christian, man, the follower of Christ, you know, about the traditions of men. Matter of fact, let's I'm gonna pull that up, man. I'm gonna share that with y'all. I'm gonna share my screen. We're gonna go get that. Right. All right, to the stage. Let's go get this here now. I'm gonna be going to Colossians 2:8. And there's other witnesses in this passage too that I'm going to share with y'all. But this is what Paul tells the Christians of the day, the followers of Yeshuah of the day. He say, beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit. Okay, the word vain, people, means empty, right? There's nothing there. Say, for instance, like the building, you know, people think that the Most High and Yeshuah is in a building. No, he's the building. You the building. You are the church. You know why I say you know, the kingdom of heaven is within you. You know what I'm saying? Right? And he say, after the traditions of men, these so-called holidays as we know them, these are traditions of men. If you go and you look at all these I meant to say religions. So like you go and you look at all these religions, they traditions and the holidays too, most of them. A lot of them are of Satan, a lot of them just pagan traditions of men. But you take these religions, man, and you go and you trade, go to the origin of, you're gonna see where they were started by some man. You know what I'm saying? By some man, you know, and some man that's saying that he was given this revelation or what have you, you know what I'm saying, and was told to start this religion. Take Baptist for an example. The baptism was only being mentioned, as far as what I know, you know, really 2 times. Moses baptized as well, right? And of course, you know, with John the Baptist, you know, Christ, and then later on the disciples, you know, the apostles. You know, that's the only time, but these people have taken it and made it a whole entire doctrine, right? That's a tradition of men. That's a vain philosophy, man. You know, And so we got to put down religion, because the Bible don't teach religion. You know, it's a book of the law, man. It's a law book. Let me show y'all that. We're gonna go to Joshua, 1:8, man. We're gonna go to Joshua 1:8. And check out what Joshua said. He said, this book of the law, he didn't say religion. Say, this book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. For then thou shalt make thy way prosperous, and then thou shalt have good success. Let's go get a couple of witnesses to this here, right? We got what, two more witnesses. Joshua himself and Deuteronomy, chapter 17, verse 18, and said, it shall be when he sitteth upon the throne of his kingdom, that he shall write him a copy of this law in a book out of that which is before the priests, the Levites. Verse 19, and it shall be with him, and he shall read therein all the days of his life, that he may learn to fear the Lord his God, to keep all the words of this law, right? Torah, Tanakh, right? And these statutes to do them. Deuteronomy chapter 31, verse 24. And it came to pass, when Moses had made an end to writing the words of this law in a book, until they were finished. Verse 26, take this book of the law and put it in the side of the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, that it may be there for a witness against thee. And it's a witness against you too, boy, because you can't read it without getting cut, or convicted. You know what I'm saying? You read that book, it's gonna convict you, or you ain't got no soul, no spirit. Okay, Joshua chapter 8, verse 34. We already in Joshua, we read here. He said, afterwards he read all the words of the law, the blessings and the cursings, according to all that is written in the book of the law. And then we're gonna go get the words of Yeshuah, right? We're gonna go to the last book of the Bible, man. In the last chapter of that last book. And we're gonna start at verse 14. This is one of this is a heavy hitter right here. It gets no plain upon table than this right here. Blessed are they that do his commandments, right? His Torah, right? Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right. In other words, that you're going to have right to the tree of life, and may enter in through the gates into the city. Let's see what he means. Here got some witnesses too. Daniel chapter 12, verse 12. Blessed is he that waiteth and coming to the 1,350 and 30 days. 1 John chapter 3, verse 24. And he that keepeth his commandments dwelleth in him, and he in him. And hereby we know that he abide in us by the Spirit which he hath given us. So, it ain't no way around it, man. We got to keep those commandments. We're gonna stop saying it. So no matter how you slice it, man, you got to keep those commandments, people. So, we got to let go of this system, man, because, its return is nearer than we think, man. We have no time. I'm going to get it together, man. I'm going to go throw me a little more cash in the strip club, man. Next year, man, I'm gonna leave it all up. No, you ain't got next year. The stock can crack now. The stock can be cracking, as I'm telling y'all. It's gonna crack, So you really have no time, man. And and if you don't know, man, don't let your pride, you know what I'm saying, and stuff like that prevent you from, because the information is out there, it's accessible. You know what I'm saying? I don't know everything, but I know enough to get you on track the way you'll know how to walk on eggshells. In other words, you'll know how to, you begin to fear the Lord, to where you're going to be careful about breaking his commandments, about being disobedient, because obedience is the highest form of worship. I don't care how much charity you go perform. I don't care how many homeless people you feed or all that, but if you ain't in obedience, you know what I'm saying, to the Lord, He gonna tell you, get away from me, for I never knew you. Right? So you know, we're in the last days, people. This thing is gonna get even more crazier, man. And we're not right with the Father. You know what I'm saying? In the name of the Son, man, we gonna perish right along. You know what I'm saying, with the evil, wicked people of this earth. So, man, with that, man, I hope y'all got some out of this lesson, man. Also, you know, you can download the PDF and go back and study it yourself. You know, every one that I present, you know, it's gonna be downloadable for you to go and do your own research on it, man. You know, so all I'm asking, man, you like, you know what I'm saying, share the video. You know, I don't want no money, you know, I don't want anything. All I want is your attention. You know, listen at this truth. Don't take what I'm saying, you know, go and research for yourself. Go ask for questions and so on and so forth. Got a question for me, put it in the comments. You know, I answer to the best of my knowledge. And if I can't answer like that, I'm going to research and find an answer. Pray to the Father that we get an answer. But, you know, don't sit back and allow your pride to prevent you, you know what I'm saying, from getting in through those gates. If you don't know, ask somebody, man. And with that, I'm going to say shalom and may the Most High bless.